It is the lord of Siberian nature, grand and insuperable. Its heart is a mighty drive for power stations, while its soul is storage for numerous ancient legends. Stalin's Pantheon, Tolstoy Nos, Dikson, the Kazachinsky Rapids. Great legends of the Great River, either well-known or hidden from the world. Krasnoyarsk is where we start our journey in search of them, from the head of the Yenisei down to its estuary far beyond the Arctic Circle. Volna. This is the motor vessel I've been looking for. I am boarding it to start my journey to the north of the Yenisei. Hello.
Hi.
"40 years ago, at the beginning of the 1970s, ethnographers recorded an ancient Nenets legend about the lord of the Yenisei living in the river, the Taimyr dragon. It would be interesting to know if this legend is still remembered on the Yenisei, and what other legends may the big water hold in storage. This question will be answered after we have traveled more than 1,500 miles down the Great River. It's not mere chance that our journey starts at the Krasnoyarsk hydroelectric power station. It is where the Yenisei's greatest legend of the 20th century originated, though lots of ancient tales have been lost in its shadow. There is no place for them in the New World. "We are going to stop you, Yenisei. We are going to tame you, Yenisei." Soviet constructors literally challenged Yenisei, like knights defying a monster. Thousands of concrete pyramids are being thrown into the water. On March 25, 1963, participants of the all-Union Foremost Komsomol construction project stopped the Yenisei, which took them 6.5 hours. The Krasnoyarsk HPS has become one of the most powerful ones on the continent. A monstrous metal structure as high as a 9-story building has been built on the Yenisei, as if it was a defeated enemy's throat and is going to last for centuries to come. No ship can get over the dam without it. Locks are normally built at hydropower electric stations to lower and raise ships, but it was not the case with the Krasnoyarsk HPS. It was not cost-efficient to build navigation locks due to the big change in elevation. It would make the string extend almost all the way to Krasnoyarsk, which is 25 miles from the HPS dam. The cost of the locks was comparable to that of the HPS itself, and the flow of water would have reduced the station efficiency to nothing. That was when a brilliant idea was sparked to construct a ship lift, which could lift vessels and carry them over the dam. The total length of the route is just 1 mile instead of 25. I am at the bottom of this unique structure. This huge basin is going to be filled with 3,600 tons of water at the level of just over 8 feet. I think I'd rather leave this place. Our Volna enters a special ship-carrying chamber, and the metal monster raises the boat to a height of 400 feet without any effort, as if it was a feather, and then lowers it onto the surface of the Yenisei just as easily. There is another real thing which has become a legend right ahead of us. The place where the Yenisei, even tamed by numerous hydroelectric power stations, fills captains with reverence and awe. The Kazachinsky Rapids. The Kazachinsky Rapids are the most challenging area for navigation on the Yenisei. Hidden rocks, high-velocity streams, disturbed flows, and breakers pose a major hazard for navigation. Captains state that the Big Yenisei can be compared to a mountain river in terms of the difficulty for navigation. In some areas, the level difference is as much as 30 feet, which is almost a waterfall. The Khutinsky Rapids are the most dangerous place on the Yenisei. The speed of the motor vessel is 7.5 knots, while the stream is almost 3 times as fast. It may seem impossible for a ship to overcome it, but the river is the only link between out-settlements and the mainland. There is no other way to deliver essential commodities to people. You have to use a chain tug to navigate upstream through the rapids. There are 2 chain tugs on the Yenisei. One of them operates on the Khutinsky Rapids, and the other one is here on the Kazachinsky Rapids. Vessels were not able to overcome the obstacle. Attempts of pulling them by barge haulers failed as the current was too strong. Only the most skilled navigators could pass a ship through the needle's eye of the Kazachinsky Rapids. At the beginning of the 20th century, the depth of the fairway was as little as 5 feet. Dredging operations commenced in 1906, and later the world's first specialized vessel was provided to facilitate navigation through the Kazachinsky Rapids. The chain tug Angara. A wire rope was fixed to the riverbed so that the tug could pull a whole set of vessels by means of winding it on a winch. They say that engineers managed to make the Kazachinsky Rapids almost safe by the end of the 60s. But even today, captains pass through it with caution. They seem to intrude into an area governed by a furious lord. Our Volna is alone when passing some dangerous rocks. We are going downstream, and the chain tug is not provided in this case. Finally, the obstacle is left behind. By the way, one may ask why they can't clear the rapids by just exploding the rocks. The answer is simple. Today, the Kazachinsky Rapids are not just a challenge to navigators, but also a salvation for the Yenisei itself. If they are destroyed, the river could become too shallow, as the rapids now act as a natural dam maintaining the depth. Depths of over 200 feet are registered in the Yenisei River. Down there on the riverbed, there lives a creature which looks like a prehistoric pangolin. Bare eyes with no lids or eyelashes, gazing with snake-like coldness. This is how Viktor Astafyev describes the Tsar fish. It is a legend of the Yenisei, which every fisherman dreams of catching at least once. The Siberian sturgeon really impresses with its resemblance to a prehistoric pangolin, as well as its size. Its life is in a way like that of a human. It reaches maturity at the age of 18 and can live as long as 80 years, just like people. In the century before the last, tons of sturgeons were caught. Hundreds of merchants made fortunes from fishery. Nikita Vereshchagin, the major fishmonger, lived here, in the town we are passing by, Yeniseisk. There have not been yields like those for a long time, as it has been prohibited to catch sturgeons for half a century. Are there any Tsar fish in the Yenisei today? Fishermen should know that. We are going to ask them about everything, and with some luck, we will even taste some real Yenisei fish soup.
Guys, here's what we're going to do. It's brought us here. We're going back now, and I'll check the nets.
Oh, it's out. Not bad. Okay then. The second pike we've got for now. Not much of a pike, though. A small one. A little smaller than this nice one. There are 50 recipes of fish soup on the Yenisei, and here is one of them, the recipe of the famous fish soup known as kirzhachka.
If we have a half a pot here, 1 onion is enough. The main thing is that the fish is fresh.
Some perch to make it richer, and then a pike.
Pike and bream, yeah. Potatoes should be the same kind too. Either white or yellow. Here, we use Andretta. That's the name.
While the kirzhachka is boiling, there is talk about some real giants of the Yenisei.
Our grandfathers and fathers said that once in 1913, a whale was stranded in the Yenisei mouth, right to the bank, and they ate it all the war.
It's hard to distinguish between the naked truth and some embellishment in fishermen's stories. But fish from the Yenisei saved thousands of lives during the war and post-war years. Still, we want to believe that there still are some tsarfish hiding in the depths.
My brother is living in Dudinka now. He used to live in Koral. There's a village nearby. He told about a case about the whole village went to see some 3 big fish, he says, and entered the river mouth. They were right on the surface.
More? Oh, a fisherman does not lie. It means he's a goner.
All villagers went there to see the folks. They were swimming there calmly. The whole village went there.
Meanwhile, our fish soup is almost ready. There is a final flourish, a secret ingredient no Yenisei fish soup can do without.
Well, as they say, a finishing touch. It's a dipping firebrand.
Connoisseurs from Moscow and St. Petersburg come to the Yenisei covering thousands of miles just to experience this taste and flavor. Thank you so much.
Good luck.
You too.
Come again.
The Yenisei was a place of exile throughout history. Rebellious nobles, self-appointed tsars, Decembrists, and in the 20th century, political prisoners were sent here to Siberia. A symbol of that era is lost somewhere on these banks, the Grand Stalin's Pantheon, or rather, what has remained of it. There has not been any coverage for almost 24 hours, which is quite unusual to me as a city resident. On the other hand, it's no wonder, as inhabited areas are becoming scarce. When we saw the skyline of the first settlement in 24 hours on the horizon, I realized at once that it was Koreika, a tiny village in the wild taiga, where a monument of an all-Union level was located. Yes, hello.
Hi,
Hello.
I'd like to know what station this is. Where are we?
Kureka village.
Kureka.
Yes.
I was right. All ships passing by had to stop in Kureka for 2 hours, and their passengers were told to undertake a pilgrimage to the Soviet sanctuary. Joseph Stalin, who was then named Jugashvili, was exiled to the Yenisei in 1914 and lived in the godforsaken Kureka for 2 years. To eternalize that episode, in 1952, prisoners were engaged in constructing a colossal structure with that very Stalin's hut inside. The hut looks like it did when Comrade Stalin lived here. On fine days, when the sun highlighted the outline of the log hut, this house inside a house looked like a real miracle. And this Pantheon, is it within the village or is it outside?
It's outside.
Oh, it means it will take us some time to get there. And how?
You can sail on it or get there by motorbike.
To be sure, the view is quite impressive. Remnants of an enormous structure rise in the middle of the Siberian taiga, a 40-foot colossus distorted by time. Even now, it makes you feel thrilled when you come closer.
This is the front piece. Stalin's profile was depicted here. This house had already been here. This part here looked like northern lights. It was so beautifully done.
After the denunciation of the cult of personality in 1961, Stalin's house inside the Pantheon was taken down and the leader's sculpture was drowned in an ice hole in the Yenisei. The 1990s finished it. The Pantheon burned down and turned into ruins. Broken ornaments and extraneous Canadian spruces, which had been brought here a half a century ago, are the only things reminding us about the former grandeur. They outgrew the Pantheon long ago, and their dark branches have formed an ominous curtain, which makes it impossible to see anything from the river. However, we must proceed to another legend of the Great River. There is a wonder port where the Yenisei flows into the Arctic Ocean, which goes underwater every single year. The next morning, the Arctic reminded us of its name by sending gusts of icy wind. And now I am in for a river ritual. According to a Yenisei tradition, everyone who crosses the Arctic Circle for the first time must do it. 66.5622 degrees to the north from the equator, an invisible line beyond which the Arctic region begins. Here, I've never seen such clean water. That's it. It feels a little cold at first, but now, quite warm. It is where the northernmost land of the Eurasian continent begins, the Taimyr Peninsula, which gave its name to the dragon of the ancient legend. As we are approaching the port of Dudinka, the Yenisei starts looking like an endless sea with huge liners sailing on its waves. Although Dudinka is located on the river, it is an international seaport. Sea vessels and barges painted in red and orange, which are traditional polar colors, get unloaded at the port all year round. The Northern Sea Route passes here, which is the shortest transit route between the European part of Russia and the Far East, between the largest markets of Europe and the Asia-Pacific region. From Dudinka, ships carry copper, nickel, and metal products to Murmansk and Arkhangelsk, Rotterdam and Hamburg, Shanghai and Busan. On their return trip, they deliver foods and all supplies necessary for life in the polar region. The northern sea route is 2,440 nautical miles shorter than the alternative path through the Suez Canal and makes the voyage in 10 days less. The weather is nasty, but I'm lucky. I'm going to board a real marine transport ship. It's called Zapolyarny. I have found myself inside something like a spacecraft control center. It is the first time I've been on the command bridge of such a big vessel.
These ships are unique because they can operate independently in the western sector of the Arctic region all year round. That is, they can carry out transportation without icebreakers all year round.
Now, Zapolyarny lies out waiting for water to leave. According to recent reports, it has to go down another 3 feet to clear the berths, which is going to take at least 3 days. And this happens every spring. Every year, the port is flooded, and then in spring, it is restored again, rising like a phoenix from the ashes. In spring, all those cranes and loaders are evacuated from the quay to Zhuravlinaya Hill, which is inaccessible for water, and work goes on. There is nothing of the kind in any other port in the world. I am getting into a loader cabin to look at the legendary Dudinka from a height of 100 feet. This is a video camera, zooming in, zooming out. Oh, we have night mode. There are some buttons here too. So you don't only access what you see in front of you visually, but you also use the video camera, right? Yes, we do. It's impossible to assess because there is the trick of the eye. It may seem you are getting, well, where you need to, but really, it is in fact far from that place, an optical illusion. Dudinka was founded by the first Russian merchants who had come here along the Yenisei at the beginning of the 17th century to buy some fur. They traded throughout Taimyr, but they never sailed beyond the settlement on the Cape of Tolsty Nos. By the end of the 19th century, it had degraded, and now Tolsty Nos is abandoned. It is not easy to get there. We have taken a ferry to the village of Kareul. It takes half an hour more to get to Tolsty Nos from there by motorboats. Nothing but some dry awards indicate grave sites in an ancient cemetery. A monument made of pure marble shows white against that background. It is another legend of the Yenisei, and an unsolved mystery. Pimen is a mysterious prisoner and our man in the iron mask. He is known to have been a high dignitary, but who was he? In the 18th century, Dmitry Ovtsin, an Arctic researcher, wrote in his diary that it was the grave of a patriarch. But which of the patriarchs was he? There was only one dignitary named Pimen known in the history, whose destiny correlates with that of our mysterious exile. Pimen was the Archbishop of Novgorod, who was arrested on suspicion of treason against Ivan the Terrible. He was defrocked, dressed like a jester, and led around the city like this. This punishment impressed Pimen's contemporaries greatly. People believe that the unfortunate Archbishop did not die imprisoned in the monastery, but was secretly exiled to the far north. There are Nenets graves next to the marble grave of the mysterious Pimen. They look spooky, but local tradition prohibits digging eternally frozen ground. The dead are left on the surface in wooden coffins, roughly hammered together, and are never visited. The Nenets still perform ancient rituals and bloody sacrifices. What we call myths is part of the universe for these people. Now we are quite close to the land where the legend of the Taimyr dragon, the Lord of the Yenisei, has spread from. Are there any storytellers among the Nenets? Do they still remember their ancient legends? It's not going to be easy to find them because they are nomads, but I'm determined to do it. And before the Yenisei becomes wrapped in fog, I have a chance to see the main legend of the Arctic region, Dikson Island, with my own eyes. The distance from Karul to Dikson is 186 miles, and ice drifting has not begun here yet. So we are flying over the Yenisei on an Mi-2 helicopter. This rocky land is located in the Yenisei Bay, where the Yenisei estuary enters the Arctic Ocean. In just 2 hours of flight from the North Pole, Khariton, Laptev, Semyon, Chelyushkin, Fritjof Nansen, Edward Toll, Rual Amundsen, Georgy Ushakov, Ivan Papanin, Otto Schmidt. The route of all great Arctic pioneers passed through Dikson. It consists of a village on the mainland and an island. Only 3 people are working here, at a polar station which was founded almost 100 years ago. Unfortunately, nowadays few people know what Dikson is, though it used to be a legend in the past. It was the capital of the Arctic region. On the 8th day of the journey, a tourist vessel approached Dikson. Nikita Berechev, a Taimyr pioneer. He rises above Dikson as a symbol of the courage shown by its inhabitants. Sailors, aircraft pilots, hydrologists. When I lived in St. Petersburg, it is a little more about me rather than Dikson, and walked along those streets. I always miss the vast expanses we can see now, some wind and perhaps this breath of Arctic. I don't know how to describe it. This must be the feeling people mean when they say that he who has been to the north at least once will always want to go there again. Dikson is the northernmost inhabited locality in Russia. During the polar night, people don't see the sun for 3 months. Winters last almost all year, while short summers are never warm. It seems impossible to live on Dikson. But during the period of Soviet exploration of the Arctic region, schools, kindergartens, shops, and even a small airport for ice reconnaissance and delivering expeditions to drifting polar stations were built here. Yes, it's the Arctic outside. The weather is generally normal on Dikson. Life is not worse here than in the Urals or in a village near Moscow. My memories are warm. I don't remember any frosts or polar nights. My childhood passed in a warm atmosphere. All I remember is light. I've always felt good here. But there is no more light in most Dikson windows in the evening. In the 1990s, hundreds of people left the far north forever. I was unhappy to see those empty streets and abandoned houses, of course. With intact windows, nobody can even break. It's sad. However, I don't only hope. In fact, I believe that Dikson, first, it will last forever. And it has a new beginning now. But now, before plans of developing Dikson come true, life seems dead here. Valery Adamovich lives in hope that one day these deserted streets will be full of life again, and Dikson will stop being a ghost town and will turn into the legendary Dikson of his childhood. On the 9th of May, there were always meetings near the monument to heroes of the North Sea Fleet who died defending Dikson. During World War II, hundreds of ships passed along the Northern Sea route. 4 million tons of different cargo was transported. The heroes of Dikson prevented Germany from stopping the delivery of vital supplies to the USSR. Germans attached great importance to the control of transport routes passing through the Arctic region. What they needed was weather. That is why they attacked the polar station in Dikson. There was a radio center on Dikson at that time, which provided communication for both passing convoys and all other vessels. Dikson was obviously very important for Germans from this point of view. But they did not manage to make a landing and seize Dikson. Although there were few people and almost no artillery, thanks to the people noted here. On the mainland port of Dikson, there is the only acting port on the entire coast of the Kara Sea, the most difficult sector of the Northern Sea route. Vladimir Radigin ensures safe navigation. Lighthouses, there are about 44 of them here, must always be in good condition. Well, first they have different colors, red, green, white. And then there are their characteristics. Some light for a second, others for 2.5 seconds. So you can know the name and position of a lighthouse by its light characteristics. And you can also find out where the ship is relative to them. Humans are not the master of the capital of the Arctic. The polar bear is. It is foggy today, as you can see, and you may not see a bear in the fog, although it wandered here on shore just 3 weeks ago. This polar giant steppe is silent under the cover of thick fog. It is afraid of nothing and can kill easily. The only thing that can save you is the rasp of the tracks of an off-roader, which it dislikes. I have to sail to Chelyushkin and back. It takes 18 days. I have expelled 34 bears from lighthouses. When searching for food, a bear can accidentally step onto a cable, pull, and break it. That is why, before a shipping season like today, we must visit the lighthouse and make sure everything works fine. Dikson Island is submerging in fog. Very soon, the polar night is going to cover this water and land. Only the lights of the lighthouses will remind us that here, on Dikson, life goes on. But before I finish my journey, I have to see people who have been living in the north of the Yenisei for thousands of years. And if I am lucky enough, I will find a real storyteller who will tell me the ancient legend of the Lord of the Yenisei. If, of course, it is still remembered on this shore. To get to the place where the Nenets live, we had to return to the village of Karaul and then travel by a reindeer sleigh. This is the first time I'm riding in a reindeer sleigh. It feels incredible. Another exciting thing is that I am going to speak to real native people of the Taimyr tundra, reindeer herders. Who else but them can tell me about the legends and tales of the great river Yenisei? 1.5 hours of the journey seem an age because riding through scrub in a rigid sled is like jumping from a springboard sitting on a stool. have just arrived at a nomad camp, and it looks like I am witnessing a very interesting ritual. I hope I will be told what is going on. Can you explain? What's there in that mug? Is it blood? Blood, yeah. Of a reindeer? A deer. I have just seen with my own eyes the Yaptun family sacrificing one of their reindeer. Its blood was offered to the home idol so that it protects the kin. After the deity is fed, everybody, even children, must drink some sacrificial blood. It is prohibited to unwrap it. And a stranger must not touch it, right? Once a year, you know. Once a year? Well, in some cases, for example, if someone is sick, a reindeer is slaughtered, blood is smeared all over. But not only this, for example, fishing or hunting wild reindeer. It always helps in all things. Epochs flew like an instant against the background of these motionless expanses, and the Nenets, who have been grazing reindeer for 1,000 years here. 40 people live in this camp. 3 kin families, the Yaptun, the Voyenga, and the Yari. Cell phones and snowmobiles are the only tools provided by modern civilization. Like everyone else, Yuri Yaptun could move to the city. But for those born in the tundra, nomad life is a calling. When I spend 3 days in town or a village, I want to go back to the tundra, and I can do nothing about it. Thousands of families and 500,000 of reindeer are now nomadizing throughout the vast expanses from the Kola Peninsula to Taimyr. This long-standing lifestyle could not be changed even at the beginning of the 20th century, when the free Nenets people were driven to collective farms and shamans were prosecuted like criminals. What happened to them during the revolution? They were all imprisoned, taken to Krasnoyarsk. They froze to death there. Storytellers suffered the same fate. I was told that the only person I could ask about the Taimyr dragon was Raisa Mikhailovna Yaptun, the oldest Nenets woman in this camp. Raisa Mikhailovna has 10 children and many grandchildren. She does not remember exactly. The old Nenets woman has been nomadizing in the Yenisei tundra since her parents married her off. When her husband was alive, folklore expeditions came there to see him, to listen to and record some Nenets legends.
I had a husband, Alexei Holhovich Yaptune. He knew about all the Nenets legends, about all the creatures you're looking for, and he was a knowledge keeper. I don't know anything. I never listened to him. My duty is to take care of the tent. I can't listen or gaze around. Seek those like my husband. Look for the storytellers.
In a neighboring camp, we were lucky to find a woman storyteller of the Yenisei legends.
I know this from my father. My father from his father. My grandfather from his father. For generations, our generation to another. Our kin has been that of storytellers.
All neighbors, from small children to 100-year-old men and women, used to gather in her grandfather's tent. In silence, to the sound of the fire in the hearth, people listened to ancient legends.
Apart from giants, there are also creatures named Shifertia in the Nenets mythology. According to a legend, they lived here before the Nenets, the Anets, and all those other ethnic groups came. And when people came, they left, they disappeared. They're supposed to be living in the hills, in their caves. When I was a child, my grandmother wouldn't let me wander away and look at those hills. She said, She'd tell us, "You'll be kidnapped."
And here it is at last, the ancient legend of the Lord of Yenisei, the Taimyr dragon. It really exists and is still remembered.
The king of water lives under the water and decides what to give to each family, what to put in their nets. So children were never allowed to, well, throw things into the water, like stones or rocks, so as not to irritate the king of water.
The eternal frost has seized everything, but the tale of the ancient dragon has lasted for thousands of years here on the Yenisei. Let it always be like that. If water flows along these banks, the big water of the great river. This harsh land at the very edge of the Arctic Ocean is sometimes called the end of the earth. But anyone who has been here realizes that it is not the end, but the beginning. The Yenisei takes its origin more than 2,500 miles away from the place where I am now. At its head, air is melting in the hot sun. Camels are strolling slowly, and the Cyan Mountains rise against the horizon. And here, beyond the Arctic Circle, where the mighty river flows into the Kara Sea, warmth is just an illusion. The ancient and impetuous Taimyr dragon is the Yenisei itself, powerful, dangerous, and fascinating by its beauty. This might of nature will always make people feel thrilled by its incredible legends and the history of the great Russian river, which is endless, like its eternal progressive motion.